Hello, and welcome to the Special Needs Sibling Podcast. On this podcast, we talk about what life is really like as a sibling to someone with special needs. I'm your host, Charlene, and today our guest is Abby. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, I'm excited to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. We start every show with getting to know a little bit more about our Sib's family. So, Abby, can you please lay out your family structure? What your disability, your sibling has, all that fun stuff.
Okay, I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I live with my mom, my dad, and then my little brother, Jeremiah. He has a duplication of chromosomes 1 and 22q, which basically it causes a lot of health issues, things like developmental delays, seizures, mobility issues. There's a bunch of different medical issues that can affect his life as he gets older. And then I have an older brother who is currently a senior in high school.
We're probably at the doctor's office a lot, is my guess, but we'll get into that more. But that's definitely like a lot of movement of people and lots of things happening.
Oh, definitely, all the time. I think we're averaging 1 to 2 doctor's appointments a week right now.
That's a lot of miles.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, we like to keep it open forum here on the podcast. So, Abby, what would you like to talk about today?
I have a couple different topics, but I think we had really talked about, I'm 15, so growing up as a special needs sibling in the 2000s, 2020, 2024 versus you had grown up a lot earlier, and the difference we have, which I'm sure is like now there's a lot more there's a lot more doctors who specialize in different things. So, I mean, obviously, with my brother, we went to Ohio for a couple weeks to see a doctor who specialized in 22q. But I'm not sure, did they have that back then?
I was just going to say, I don't even know if that was, or even if it was in existence, I'm going to guess that it was more on the rare side of things, because there's some other sibs I've had on this podcast that are older than me. And for them, if their sibling had this very rare disability, it exists, obviously, because their sibling is living it. But at the same time, the number of people that share in that is very far and few between. So I've personally never heard of it. But that also doesn't really mean a whole lot, because again, with all the other siblings who've told me about their sibs and their disability, well, I don't know.
Exactly. I think this one was it was a very big surprise when my mom was doing all the research, because we had just found out, and they were like, oh yeah, have you heard of the 22q clinic at Nationwide Children's Hospital? And so we got a phone call on I think it was a random Tuesday. We had filled out the request 6 months before, and they kind of said oh, we can get you in April. That was 2 weeks before. And so we had 2 weeks to prepare for a lot of doctors. They took I don't know, it was 20 vials of blood.
Oh my gosh.
In one day.
20?
And they literally had to sit in the office for 2 hours with an IV because they couldn't take all the blood at one time.
Oh my gosh, it sounds terrible.
And mind you, this is a 3-year-old who's sitting still for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And definitely an experience, in my parents' words.
Yeah, the level of specialty doctors has increased over the time. And the other interesting thing is just the existence and what's the word I want to look for? Expansion of the internet, right? Because the internet existed for me growing up on some level, but not to the level where did you have already, were there smartphones in your house by the time that you were younger? I don't know at what point it's.
I think the iPhone 3 was out when I was born. So
okay, so the fact that people had computer in their pockets, the idea of that already is in existence. Yeah, whether your family personally had one is a different thing, but it's just the ability to, the fact that people could look anything up at any point versus oh, I need to be at a dedicated computer, like at the library, right, or at your own house, which is fine, right, or going like to like at school, right? They had like classes and things like that, and I think that part is interesting because I think the I'll call it networking. I'm not sure if that's quite the right word, but the networking of parents to either other parents of similar family situations and disabilities and or their ability to connect to doctors is very that part is different, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like unless if you went to a doctor who then recommended you to these other 6 things, but you technically could just now you can look it up on the internet, which I don't know if that's how your parents did that.
We've had doctors who will, like we'll go see them, and then they'll say, "Well, you should go see this doctor at so and so children's hospital or so and so hospital, because we think they would better fit your needs, and they know a lot more about, his disability or his condition." And, it's kind of interesting because they'll say that, and then we'll go to this doctor, and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I have no idea about this condition," because it is like, my brother's condition is pretty rare. And so it's one of those things where it's like, it's not a fight with doctors, but it's very rare to have a doctor who, like, totally understands the condition that he has, and, like, so going up there was, like, a big deal because he totally understood, what
Oh,
22q
fascinating.
is.
So,
Um,
which I'm gonna switch a little bit from the doctor part. So I'm curious because as I'm not gonna phrase this very well, but I think you'll know what I'm getting at when I get to it. Because one of the things that I think growing up was we or like culturally, I think, mental health and emotional intelligence and all of that was very low on the radar. And so a lot of the people that I have talked to on this podcast and just in life who are my age and older have a lot of, we didn't really talk about like we would talk about, people go, "Oh, what'd you do over the weekend?" And you talk about your sib and then they don't get it. You just like you just move on and they don't know what I'm talking about. You kind of do that. But I'm curious for you because the world right now, just even if we just talk about you in middle school and high school, not even like when you're 5 or something, right? But like what is that like now for you when you what like is that the same? Is it different? Because like just yeah, what is that like for you
I
now?
think it really, really depends on the person.
Okay.
Because you'll have, like, the high schooler or because 'cause I'm a high schooler, you'll have the person who, like, you'll tell them like, "Oh, I have a brother who has special needs," who will have no idea what that means or, just they just, like, don't understand, and so you're like, "Okay, maybe you're not the person to talk to about this." But
Right.
then you do have the people who totally get it, and who not only totally get it, but want to learn more. And so, like, I have some really good friends who just, like, constantly are asking me for updates on my brother or, like, constantly wanting to know more about my brother. And so it's really interesting because, like, it really just varies by person, and, like, I know for me, like, if I'm having a bad day and like, with my brother or, like, my brother's in the hospital or something like that, and somebody will text me and be like, "Hey, how are you?" It really depends on the person to answer that question because, like, if I know this person isn't really gonna be the most, like I don't wanna say sympathetic person, but they're not gonna understand, I'll probably be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm good," or like, "Oh, it's been, like, okay, like, I'm okay." But, like, if it's someone who I know will get it, or who will judge me for it, I'll probably be like, "Well, I'm kinda iffy right now because my brother's in the hospital, so, like, I can't really tell you how I'm doing." So I think it just really depends on the person and the people that you're surrounded by. Like, for me, like, I'm surrounded by some good support systems, so I can be honest with them, but, like, when you're not surrounded by, like, the best support systems, it can be a lot harder, in my opinion.
No, yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that I mean, even as adults, we have those issues as Sims, right? There's this whole filtering system that, unfortunately for you, will never go away. I don't know if that makes you feel better or not, but it's like infinitely gonna be there, right? I talk to people I mean, it'll change obviously as you get older and like you have your solidified friends and where you live, like all that will that parts of it will evolve. But it's interesting just because the filter is always there depending on yeah how close of a circle they are to you, right? Like because the closer circle they are, the more they're going to understand or be willing to understand versus the further away you're like ah forget it, like I'm not going to spend your energy is already preoccupied with
Right, I like to
your brother.
say you have, like, your inner circle and your outer circle,
Yeah.
and, like, your inner circle people, at least for me, are, like, the people who you're gonna like, they're gonna know a lot more about you and know a lot more about your sibling, but, like, the outer circle are the people who, like, they don't know as much about your sibling,
Yeah, yeah, that's something that's always an evolving target, but the thing that's nice is I found that the people that were people that care about my sister, even if me and them like lose touch or whatever over time, you don't you don't worry about those ones. Versus like, if you have a falling out with someone that you just like don't like at school, you're kind of like, ah, like, it's annoying or whatever. There's all these kind of like other um consequences and byproducts that you kind of feel. But I always felt that if anyone that was close enough or that cared enough where they would even show interest in my sister, I feel like with those people, yeah, even if we would drift apart, like I don't feel all those other things, which I think is fascinating.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, it's funny because I mean, my brother, he's pretty popular around, like, my church or, like, my school. Everyone kinda knows who he is because he is, like, this bundle of joy, he's this light, and, like, anyone who meets him will say the same thing, like, he's just a light, and I've learned that everyone who meets this child just wants to know more, and so I get random texts from people who I don't talk to on a daily basis or even monthly basis, just being like, "Hey, how's your brother doing?" And I'm just like, "Oh, you're texting me about my brother? That's really interesting." Because, like, I didn't know you even knew he existed, right?
That I mean, I I'm so conflicted about that because I feel like there's a part of me that goes, "Oh, that's cool," and a very big part of me that's like, that's not cool because there's so many other ways that that could have been done. Not to say it's not like it's rude or anything, but I just feel like as a civ, it's just like, well, what am I? Just like the means for you to get to it, but that's just my
Well, like,
cynical, you know what I mean?
it really depends because I feel like when they ask, like, "Oh, how your brother's doing?" It's their way of starting conversation with you. Because, like, I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, maybe he's, like, in the hospital." Like, that's happened
Mm.
before, like, they'll
Oh,
text me, "How's your brother
interesting.
doing?" I'm like, "He's in the hospital right now." And so then they'll be like, "Well, how are you doing?" And so then I get, like, then that turns into, like, a friendship of some sort. I've had that happen where, like,
Oh,
I go from, like,
fascinating.
never talking to this person to then someone asking me randomly, "How's my brother doing?" And it turns into this, like, friendship that, like, we never expected to even have.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I would be so fascinated, like, in however many years, like, if that changes for you or if that stays consistent, just because I think that's why, like, what I said it the way I said it in terms of, like, I was so conflicted because I feel like when I was younger, right, either around your age or even older, whatever, like, I would get that a lot, right? Whether it was about my sister or my parents or whatever in my family, right? And I thought nothing of it. And I mean, at that point, the amount of like texts that exist were much less than they are now. But even then, I at that time I think that didn't think much of it. Versus I think now when people ask, I feel very differently about that due to a variety of other things, right? That you haven't experienced yet, which is fine. And then even other sips that I've talked to, right? Everyone has a different take. But yeah, I think I would be so fascinated as you get older, like how that evolves with you, just obviously based on your own trajectory and how you interact with your brother in the world. Like it'll be really interesting to see. But the encouraging thing is that you're able to have friendship from it. I think that's a positive thing that
Oh,
comes out of it because
yeah,
that's something I
absolutely.
would not have expected at all.
And I would say too, like, my friendships, they may have started because of my brother, but they don't revolve around my little brother. Like,
Which is good. Excellent.
majority of the time, they revolve around they'll start, like, we'll start to get to know each other a lot better, and we'll realize, "Oh my gosh, we have so much in common." Um, or like, "Oh my goodness, like, I didn't even realize you did this, but I do this too," right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think ultimately it's just, like, trying to find the right people to talk to about it. Because, like, there will be people who will text me and be like, "Oh my gosh, how's your brother doing?" And I'll just ignore them completely because it's like, I
Oh.
just don't think you're you're going to not only understand, but, like, be this person that I can ultimately build a friendship with. And so I try to just focus on the people that, like, I'm talking to and make sure, like, they're not just going to be there for my brother, but also, like, in a way, be there for me.
No, yeah, that's really good. I'm glad that you're already aware of where your energy is going, and that's really important. I think like as siblings, we already devote so much subconscious energy to stuff that one neurotypical people just don't pay attention to, and two, there's so much um oh, I'll just do this for you, don't worry about me. In general, right? Like whether that's family or friend related. And I think that it's really good that you're already making an effort like, hey, like you're already not worth my time and energy right now and that's okay, right? Like that you it all humans are not meant to be friends with everyone and tell everyone everything. Like the world was not built that way. So that's really exciting that right now you're already aware of that because I think there's just so many of us, as you've probably listened because you listen to the podcast, which is exciting. We should talk about like how we got connected after I finish this segment. But yeah, it's this thing where when I talk to other sibs, it's for a lot of us, right? Because we for the majority part, I would say the majority of guests that have been on it are older than you. We kind of go, wow. Oh, hey, I did that too in high school. Oh, like yeah, that is something subconscious that you just don't like you are aware, but you're not aware, but then once someone else says it, you go, "Oh shoot, I also spent my whole
Oh, yeah,
childhood doing it."
exactly.
But yeah.
And I think too, like we had talked about it a bit before, I've been working at a summer camp, not really working, but, like, volunteering at a summer camp all summer. It's called Children's Association for Maximum Potential, Camp. It's in Texas. And I've met multiple siblings, or just, like, met people who have a passion for, like, the special needs community, and, I think it's been so cool to see, like, them say, like, "Oh my gosh, I deal with this too," or hear them say, like, "Oh, I felt that before too," and build that community of people who, like, get special needs siblinghood, and they, like, don't judge you for it or, like, get mad at you for it.
No, yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think it's I had a very similar experience to that when the first time that I went to a camp and met other siblings and got to meet other families in general that I would have never met other else if I went to that camp. And those some of the siblings that I've met there, one fun fact, have been on the podcast because those were the first people that I actually knew in real life that I could ask to be on it. But even aside from that, right? These people are people that I can talk to them annually and it's nothing has changed, right? It's like time
Yeah,
hasn't passed and obviously things happen where like people get jobs, people like their sibling goes through different stuff, their people move, there's all these other like regular life changes, but there's so much fundamental core value things that don't change, right? In terms of how we view the world as a whole, right? How we interact with each other and other and everything. And it was so enlightening when I went for the first time. I think I was either 18 or 20, the first time that I went to a camp that was like that. Because before that I just didn't know that they existed, period. And so it was such an eye-opening and enlightening experience because that was the first time I really like visually I felt like there what like if you think about a cartoon heart, right? The whole other half of it filled up in that 1 week I met all those people and all those sips. And it was this literal, like, as I was standing there just thinking about it, I could see it, like, in my imagination, the the heart being full because it was something that at that point when I realized it, I go, "Oh, this can't be filled by any other people." It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
but I had no idea that's how that worked at all.
I think as I've met other siblings, I've started to feel, like, less and less alone in special needs siblinghood because I feel like, especially now, it's so easy to see your sibling, going through all this and just feeling so alone. Like, I know I've had to tell people, "Oh, I can't go out to lunch with you today because my brother is, in the hospital," or, "Oh, I can't go to this event tonight because of this, sickness my family needs to protect from." And so I've definitely felt alone because it's like telling you that I can't do this, is hard because people don't understand. So when you meet other siblings who you can make plans with who do understand and who aren't gonna say, "Oh my gosh, you're, like, just being dramatic," like, it's not like you're gonna get sick from this one event, it is helpful to have that, and it's very empowering.
Yeah, for sure. I guess do you wanna talk about how you got connected to the podcast? I think that's just a fun fact that it's fun to
Yeah.
talk about, yeah.
Well, I mean, I was Googling special needs sibling podcasts because it was a day that I was just like, I want to listen to other people's stories. And your podcast came up on Apple, and it was like, okay. And so I think I listened to one episode and then just started binging it, like totally.
Yeah, no, it was so interesting too that it what one of my goals with the podcast and why one I like being informal, but I think I'm sure we've talked about this, but one of the reasons why I like being informal is because in my opinion and what I've personally experienced, formality creates extra filters for us as Sims. And that's nothing against people who have formality because I've met some other people who are more formal. That's totally fine. But I think it's just for me, and that's why it's just that's why there's multiple podcasts out there, right? But I think one of the things that I felt was really important was to get the organic conversation because at the end of the day, if me and you were having lunch, we would be having this conversation whether it was recorded or not. We would be talking literally
Oh, yeah.
about the same exact thing. Right? And that was my goal because what I saw was that there's there's so many parenting podcasts, right? And there's so many additionally there's a lot of podcasts by churches who have ministries that around special needs, right? There's a lot of those podcasts. There's a lot of
Mhm.
podcasts from people who are disabled, right, talking about that. And all those things are important, right? And that's not to negate the importance of those, but at the same time, there's this whole other world of people that are us, right? We're the
Yeah.
ones who are living all of these we're like the byproducts of people listening to podcasts who then change the way they parent and change the way they run church ministry and change the way they run diversity at companies, right? Like we're the ones who are firsthand pay like having to deal with the consequences of that because we live in the homes with our parents, right?
Right. And
I yeah.
I think a part of thing that you're referring to, I know it's a term that is used a lot now, I've heard it on podcasts, is, the glass child. So one of my friends who's, they started a podcast recently, her and, another special needs sibling, um, she she started the podcast is called Breaking the Glass, um, because they're literally, like, talking about being a special needs sibling and how it impacts their lives. Because like there's not a lot of podcasts besides like yours that really talk about the heart that's part of like being a sibling. Um, because there's all the parenting podcasts and all the like, you I mean, I'm sure you're getting it, but like there's not a lot of sibling podcast that really you can relate to about how hard it is. Because ultimately, like, we're the ones who are growing up with it, and having to, like, give up part of our childhood, part of our teenagehood to help with our sibling or to protect our sibling in some way.
Yeah, exactly. And alongside that, because that was a lot of my goal was to, yeah, expose things that only sibs know, right? And the other part of that is to have a spectrum of people who are different ages from different ways that they grew up, right? On top of some other things that I could go on forever for, but a big thing that is relevant in this conversation, right, is age difference, right? Because I think as of this recording, then now you're the youngest person, right? I think prior to that, I think the youngest person I think was either 18 or 20. The oldest person I've had is 70. I've had two people that are 70, but it's so exciting, right? Because it's insane to me that there's so many core themes across every decade, right? Whether from yourself, right, where you were talking about feeling alone and just needing support and having a filter, like people don't understand, right? Like all of those core things are things that people who are 70 they felt that, right? And it was so different for them, right? From me interviewing them, like how they grew up is like way different than than me or yourself. And so it's been so fascinating for me just to really see what it's like for everybody, right? Because I've talked to people not in the US, which is really cool because obviously culturally it's very different for them, but they still experience similar things. And obviously there are going to be nuances that are different purely because like culture and government in certain countries is different on top of like life stages, right? Because there's people who are married, there's people who are single, there's people who have kids, right? There's you're still in school, there's people who are like way past all of that. So it's been so intriguing to really see all that. And I think that's something I wanted to demonstrate too, right? Because what's the fun in just interviewing the same types of people? Because and I think that's the most interesting thing for even for my own curiosity, right? Was I feel this way. The siblings I've met in person feel this way. But I would be so intrigued because one of my very good friends, and we've met, I think, three, almost maybe 4 years now. And it took us 3 years to realize that we were both special needs sibs, right? Like it just never came up until the podcast. I said, she goes, "Oh, hey, what are you doing?" And I went, "Oh, I'm starting a podcast." And she goes, "What's it about?" I went, "Oh, it's about me being an older sister to my sister who's autistic." She's like, "Really?" And then she tells me about her being older sibling too, right? Like it's just something. So, and I think that was one of the things where you yourself, you're pretty vocal about you being a special needs sib, right? But I'm guessing there's also a percentage of people that are your age that like have they don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to talk about it unless if like they don't want to do, and that's fine, right? That is their decision, that's their privacy, that's how they want to process it. And so one of my goals was to say, people like that should also be heard. Right, like they don't need to be on here, but like but every other sim should know that there's other people who feel this. Even within the niche sibling world, there's even a more niche subset of feelings and circumstances, right? And that's something I really wanted to showcase was there's so many other levels of nicheness that you can still relate to and not feel that you're the only one there because there's so many people out there.
I think too, another thing that I've definitely dealt with is, like, the idea that, my sibling isn't always gonna be welcome in one place, and we've definitely experienced that in churches, um, in around our city, but I think also, um, like, we've experienced it out in public where people are like, they'll come up to us and be like, "Oh my gosh," like, you'll hear them saying stuff about it, or they'll say it directly to my mom, like, "Your child shouldn't be on a G-tube because of this, this, and this." And it's like, "You
What?
don't
That's rude.
know." I know, it's can be really, really crazy, the things that we'll experience, and I've come to realize, like, if I find a place where my brother is welcome just the way he is, I want to be there too because I know that that's making a difference on, people just like my brother. So, like, camp, my brother can't go there till he's 5, but I went there because I wanted to make a difference and help kids just like him, kids and adults just like him, because, like, ultimately, that's part of the reason, um, like, we can tend to feel alone is because our siblings aren't welcome there, and so we tend to, like, stray away from it, which is something I definitely have dealt with before.
Yeah. The the unwelcome thing is always it's one of those we can laugh at it, but in the inside we want to die. It's very
Oh,
one
yeah.
of those like multiple things. But is there at the beginning you said you had multiple things you wanted to talk about. So what else?
Well, I think, like, that goes into it, like, just like, my siblings not being welcome in places like church or, youth group. No, not youth group because he's young, but, like, even just my friends, like, with their siblings not being welcome in places like church or youth group or, like, just the school system and how, like, kids will get, in trouble because they're, themselves. And we've definitely experienced that, I know, like, at church or out in public where, our sibling will, um, like, our church family won't, like, be there to support us, and so we'd be like, "Oh, so we're supposed to be doing this on our own." And then they'll just, like, if he's in the hospital, they'll be like, "Oh, he's in the hospital again?"
Oh man.
And so, like, that led to, like, a change of churches for us, and we thankfully found, like, a great community, and I'm so glad that we did. But, like, ultimately, like, it runs to, like, affect everyone. Like, it affects my brother, it affects me, because, like, here I am with, like, all my friends in youth group, but then my family's in, like, a totally different church. Um, so we have to find, like, I feel like we need something in this world where, like, siblings can feel welcome with their sibling. Like, they don't have to not talk about their sibling or not be super open about it because their sibling won't be welcome there. And I feel like that's something that I've done a lot is, like, stop talking about my brother because I know that they aren't going to welcome him if I bring him or welcome him if as he gets older, if that makes any sense.
That
Like,
does. Yeah, I was trying to think back on what it was like for my family just because it it's it's not quite the same, but I mean that can be for a variety of reasons. But I definitely, for sure, we weren't well. Even if people said people didn't outright say, "Oh, you're not welcome here," you definitely got the dead stares and the turning of the heads and like the walking away, like right. And I think for me, I remember it most at in like restaurant type establishments. Not restaurants specifically, but I think the thing that permeates my memory the most is places like that, like an amusement park, right? Or like a restaurant or something where
mm,
like you go where there's like there's an entrance to
I can't help but sit here and laugh at that because I relate to it so much. Like, my brother, I mean, like, think about at, like, restaurants, we'll go out to eat, and we need, like, a table for 6 when we're really a table for 5 because we need a whole 'nother space just for his,
Yep. All the
stroller
stuff.
or,
Yep.
and, like, all the stuff, and, like, his G-tube, we need to, like, hang it up, and, like, it'll start making noise, and then we'll start getting stares from every single person around us because his pump is going off telling us that it's got no flow left when there's clearly flow in the machine, and so we're trying to figure it out. Um, or, like, he'll start screaming because he's overstimulated and can't communicate, and then you get stares from people thinking he's a spoiled kid because he's having an attitude and my parents can't tell him to stop. Like, they can't say, "Jeremiah, no," because he just doesn't understand. And so I think truly it's funny that you totally get that because, I feel like people are always so surprised to hear that. Like, "Oh, you get stares in a restaurant? Oh my gosh, really?"
I was it's one of those. Oh, that's so funny because I go, if I were to tell someone something like if someone who knew nothing about disability came up to me and said, "What do I need to know about special needs families?" One of the first 5 things I would say to them is, "No, not to stare at them." Do you know what I mean? Like as it's so intuitive to the first thing you talk about within, like, 5 minutes is the staring because it's
Oh, yeah.
such a right, it's oh, that's so interesting that, like, it doesn't cross your mind because that's, like, the yeah, because it's for us, it's, like, the first thing
It's
is
it's like
always the
it's like my
staring every
normal.
time.
And I feel like people will like, okay, say my friends are with us and we're out to dinner or, like, we're out
Mhm.
to dinner with, like, a group of friends,
Yeah.
and people start staring, and they're, like, so uncomfortable. But here we are, like, so used to it at this point. It's, like, literally
I
nothing.
yeah, it's yeah, like, it's this really interesting thing where if I'm in a restaurant and, like, people stare at our family, I'm like, "Whatever," I move on, but what's really interesting is, like, if I'm at a restaurant and I see another special needs family, but then everyone's staring at them, then it's this thing where I'm like, "Man," like, I feel so like, it's so much empathy, right? Because like, I wish I could make everyone stop. But I can't. Like, there's not and I feel that way most of the time in
I
any
wish
public
they
place, right?
like, part
Like
of it is
yeah.
I wish they understood. I wish they understood what I was going through or, like, what they feel in the moment.
Yeah.
Because if they understood what they were feeling in the moment, they wouldn't be doing it themselves.
No, exactly, and
Um,
it's yeah, the public places always
I
just
think
suck.
right. I think too the staring leads to people, like, especially my parents, like, the staring will lead to them wanting to fix the problem quicker, which ultimately leads to something else going wrong, leading to, like, possible arguments or, like, all of us just being like, "Oh my gosh, what do we do?" When, like, ultimately, the only thing we had to do was stay calm and, very calmly fix this, issue that is occurring.
Yeah. It's
So people will definitely stare for quite a while because they're like, "Ah, what's going on? Like,
yeah.
what is this YouTube making this beeping noise?" And it's funny though because, like, I hear that noise and I know exactly what it is out in public, or, like, at camp, I'll know
Oh,
exactly what
yeah,
that
yeah,
sound
yeah. Because 'cause
is.
you'll hear it and you'll just like yeah, 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 exactly. I know that
Or like an
feeling.
AAC, my brother uses an AAC, and I will hear it and I'll know, "Oh my gosh, that's a Toby Dinobox AAC, like, I recognize that sound." Um, and so ultimately, I feel like if other people in this world understood, like, going out in public, we wanna have normal just like you, so give us normal. Let us eat out to dinner without hearing one comment about how this child is being really loud right now. Or let us go out to eat and have a server who is okay with bringing his chocolate milk in a sippy cup, but then us putting it into a bottle because that's the only thing he'll drink out of, right? Um, or like let us have people who can normalize the idea of still not getting a full size kids meal at the age of 3, right?
Yeah. Or
Almost 4.
I was like the
So
thing mhm.
we just want normal and we never really get normal.
Oh, no, yeah, the thing that we would do all the time is, we would get ice water and then take all the ice out of it, and then, we would disperse the ice amongst us and then just give her the regular one, or we would have to subdivide her meal into rounds so that she doesn't inhale it. So we would like take the stuff off of her basket, trade baskets, so she was having one, and then we had the extra, and then like she knew what was hers and stuff. That's what we would have to do. But it's definitely this goal of like in an ideal world, if everyone just said like let's say there was a sound, whether that's coming from like them as a person or like other equipment, right? It's kind of like, oh, what's that? Oh, that's fine, and then just go back to your meal. Like that's fine, that's understandable because you go like if someone drops a plate, you also turn around, like right. Like we're not saying
Exactly.
don't look, we're saying look and then move on with your life.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah,
don't stare for
yeah.
45 minutes at us while we're trying to fix this issue, because ultimately, like, that's just gonna make things worse on every single person in the restaurant. I think too I feel like that's something too that I've had to take into my life, like, I'll see another special needs family outside in public, same with my friends, and I see a special needs family. I have this, like sometimes I want to, like, see if, like, they're going through what I'm going through when I'm out in public, but at the same time, like, I know that if I'm, like, staring, then my friends are gonna stare, and then it's gonna turn into this whole thing where it's like, I'm doing it out of curiosity, but you're doing it out of, like, I wanna know what's happening. That didn't come out right.
Well, I know what you meant. Like, yeah, from a sib perspective, like you're good. Yeah, no, it's because we're talking about like what's motivating you to do it, right? Because at the end of the day, like as sibs, like, and I mean, there are other people who aren't sibs that do this, but it's the whole idea is if we go into a restaurant, right? I know where the bathroom is. I know where the exit is. I know how to get out if something happens. If she can't, right? Like, I know all these things because I have to think about what is my sister gonna do if she flips out, right? And again, like
Right.
there are paranoid people out there who just do that. Period. It doesn't matter if if they're a sib. But the whole thing is that as a sib, like the reason why we're doing any of the things is we're doing it out of survival, right? We're doing it out of survival. We're doing it out of like we want to make sure they're okay. We need to be okay. Like we're doing this because we don't have a choice, right? As a typical person, you have a choice whether you want to be paranoid or not, and obviously that's arguable. But to a level where if something really terrible happened and you were scared, like that sucks. But like no one's going to die, right? If it's very your brother and my sister have a much higher potential of something actually going wrong.
Oh, yeah, no, like, I feel like say he had a seizure in the middle of a restaurant, and, like, I need to know where the exit is so I can flag, like, a long seizure. I can flag the ambulance into here so that they can help my brother, or, like, say we start throwing up, I need to know where the restroom is so we can clean him up,
Yeah, right.
because that has happened multiple occasions where, like, we'll start throwing up in the middle of a restaurant and people just stare, and then not only they stare, but then we'll be running to the restroom and they'll be like, or they'll, like, start gagging, or, like, I've overheard a comment of, like, "Why didn't I even try to go out to eat?" Like,
And it's for and it's those things, right? Those are the times when if we were both in a situation where another family that was having you, you're looking not because you're like that lady who's like, oh, that's terrible, right? We're
I
looking
feel
because
like
it's like
I'm
you would
looking
feel bad, like, can I help? But like you don't want to intervene because there's all like because you don't know them. There's all the it's this very awkward dance of I know what that feels like, but I can't help you. But I'm looking for a very different reason than why everyone else is staring at you who thinks that you're just a bad person. And we're not doing it out of that reason.
like, I'll look over and, like, my mom will look over just to see if we can help them in any way.
Yeah.
Like, maybe this sibling threw up and they need us to take that tray to a spot where we can throw it away, or, like, maybe something happened where, like, they just maybe the mom and the kids went out to eat and the mom is, like, actually going crazy as all these things happen. Maybe we can help keep the other children sane so that she can deal with this one child. Like, I think we've definitely had those experiences. We'll, like, look over and see if there's any way we can help, and then go back to our meal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a hard and I mean and that's the hard part, right? Like and this brings it back to like what we were talking about earlier, right? Like it's so hard to explain these concepts in general, like all the things we've talked about, right? To explain this to someone, even our closest friends, like still don't get it, right? Even I'm married, right? My husband, he will know a very good amount of detail just because we're married, but, like, even then it's not the same, right? Because ultimately, like, he hasn't experienced it. I mean, he has now, but not to the level when I was, like, 10 and dealing with this, right?
Oh, right,
When you're 20 something and you're, like, meeting other families for the first time, whatever, when you date or when you have very good friends and you meet their sibling, that's different, right? But when you're living it constantly, it's so hard to describe that, what that is to people, and that's why it's so important just for sibs, whether they're on this podcast or not, to know that there are other people who have your actual feelings. It's not just this like, oh, like I'm the only one who goes through it and people don't understand and they can't tell anyone, right?
yeah,
There are other sibs, whether they will vocalize it like yourself or they don't vocalize it, it doesn't negate like people not vocalizing that they're not sibs does not negate the amount of feelings that are inside that need to be understood by somebody else. Yeah.
oh, yeah. I think another thing as a sibling that, like, just came to mind very spontaneously is, like, I know that if my brother is going through a hard time, I tend to hide my own, like, emotions and feelings
Mm.
because I want my mom to have, like, her focus on my brother. Um, and I think I had a friend tell me that she is it the wording was, "I think it's important to be strong for him, but you have to learn how to be strong for yourself first."
Mhm.
Because ultimately, like, your family's gonna see the best and worst in you, and because, like, it's around the people you're with the most, and I feel like that has stuck with me because, like, for a while, I would, like, hide all these emotions and just, like, be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm good," like, go be with my brother in the hospital. But, like, now my mom and I do these things called coffee dates on, where we'll go down from the hospital and, like, my dad will stay with my brother, and we'll go down and talk about how we're feeling. Because ultimately, if we're feeling like, things are going horribly, but we're not communicating that with each other, we're gonna be so, like, far apart. Like, I know that, like, my mom wants to know how I'm doing because she cares. She's my mom. And so, like, for a while, I would hide that, but, like, now I've learned, like, I need to be honest because honesty is, like, your best friend.
No, and that's really important, right? For as much as the people that the goal of this podcast is to reach other Sims, right? There's no matter what, there's going to be parents that listen to this, no matter who they are. Like that's just an inevitable consequence, like what we talked about earlier, right? But I will say to any parent or to anyone that's friends of a parent or whatever, like it's so important what your mom is doing, right?
Yeah.
She's taking out time out of her personal whatever's going on. She's giving you undivided attention and saying, "How do you feel? What do you think? What do you want to do?" Right? And asking those questions to you by yourself in a different place than where your brother, right? That is
Mhm.
irreplaceable for any parent again, like guardian whatever, right? Like if you are taking care of a typical sib, that is so important, especially, like, now that you're 15, like, you can't.
Yeah, I can't stress it enough, like, time with just your parents without your sibling is so, so, so important because ultimately, like, your sibling is going to get more attention. I mean, like, just that's
Yeah.
part of life.
That's just what it is, it's a fact.
It is,
We're
right?
not debating that, like, that's a fact for
But
everybody, yeah.
when you
We're
get like, I
it's
know
not to
my
be
dad and I
debated.
will like, even when my brother's not in the hospital, my dad and I will go get, like, a drink, and we'll talk about what's going on, or, like, my mom and I will go have coffee dates, or we'll go get a lunch, and that little tiny 30-minute attention span where it's just me and her getting to talk about anything and everything what I want is seriously, like, it means more than just, like, a date. It's more than that.
I will add to what you're saying that the key is what you want, right? This is not an opportunity for parents to say, "Oh, I'm gonna run these errands," and then just drag my kid along, which is okay. Like that's a step up, but
I mean, like, we've done that before
the
too, but
real
at least we're
thing.
still
No,
getting
yeah, and
together for
again,
the
like
talk.
that's fine, but it's different. It's fine, but it's different than like I want to get ice cream.
Yeah.
Then we'll do that.
Mhm.
I want to go to Disneyland. Okay, like we'll figure it out. Oh, I want to say right. It's different to really give undivided attention, and that's something that I learned, and that's something like with age. Eventually, you'll see like why I'm really illustrating that, just because when you're younger, you don't really think about the undivided attention versus just the like casual like, hey, I'm just gonna go to the grocery store with my dad. Which again, not bad, but the real thing is that because our sibs get so much more attention, right? Whether that's a factor of 5, whether that's a factor of 10, whether that's a factor of 100, right? Like we we need people to love us too, right? And that's something that as a parent, I'm right, I'm not a parent. I can't tell parents how to parent, but I can vocalize like as special needs sibs, like we need love too. And that comes in different forms, but it needs to come in some form of what do you want to do? How do you feel? What are you thinking? What do you want to do? Right? Like it has to come from us
Right.
saying, this is what we want. Can you give it to us? Right? Within reason, obviously, but
It's also really important to get time with your parents because, like, sometimes my mom will ask, like, a question about how I'm doing, and at home when my brother's around, or at home when things are really "I'm doing great." But in reality, on the inside, I'm not really doing great. I'm actually doing pretty horrible, pretty crappy, and so when we get those times where it's just me and her to be able to talk and her actually say, "How are you doing?" I can say, "I'm actually doing pretty crappy. I feel like this is just going to turn into this whole thing that, I didn't
hmm.
ask for. I don't want this." And it's like, I get that moment with my mom where it's like she can actually tell me like, "Hey, no matter what, like, it's gonna be okay." And, like, sometimes you just need to hear, like, from your mom who's, like, directly going through it, like, "It's gonna be okay, and, like, I'm here for you, and I care about you."
Yeah, being heard, being seen, and being loved, like, by the people who are taking care of you, right? Whether that's a guardian, your grandparents, your parents, right? And obviously, because people just have different parental situations, right? But that's a such a big thing for that's for all children, but particularly for special needs sibs, right? And I'm really excited for you because you and your mom are already doing that. That's gonna set you up really well as you get older, right? Because one of the hardest things for sibs to do is to say how I feel. And I found for myself it was hard not because I couldn't do it, but because I really didn't know how I felt. Like I just couldn't identify that I was angry. Because I've spent years suppressing my anger because my sister just needed we just have to get to the next appointment. We have to make sure she's not tantruming. We have to make sure she's eating right. Like it's this like this train ride of it going, and I never bothered. Like, I knew I was suppressed okay, when I thought back on it, I knew I was suppressing something, but I didn't know how I felt. I just was like, "Whatever, like, let's move on to the next thing," and
Yeah.
I think the fact that it's that you're already starting to identify, "Oh, I'm sad," is really good, like, that's such and I think that's a big difference, like, what we were talking about earlier in terms of you growing up now versus when I grew up, that whole conversation is so different, right? Because everyone now will ask people your age, "Oh, like, I guess we should really talk about, like, emotional intelligence, right, and how do you feel?" Because when for me growing up, it's like no one cared,
Yeah.
right? And it's not that no one cared, it's just no one knew that was how important that was as part of growing up as a teenager, as an adult, right? You just no one knew and no one talked
I
about it.
feel like also I mean, I've heard it a lot, I'm sure you heard it as a child, but I've seen special needs siblings, we have to mature a lot quicker and a lot sooner than our siblings, and so, like, at camp, people will say, "So, are you a senior going in high school or a freshman in college?" And I'm like, "Actually, I'm 15 and a sophomore in high school." And it's one of those things where it's like, I I'm just like, "Oh my gosh," like, I actually had to mature a lot quicker than you did. Like, here you are being really dumb over here, and here I am helping my sibling with their GTube and doing, like, going
I
through YouTube
know. I
training, you
don't.
know? Like, I mean, in some ways, I can do a GTube better than, like, some adults. I'm sure I can because, like, there are some adults who have no idea what a GTube is, and I know exactly how it works.
Yeah, well, it's not even just that, right? There's just things where you understand, like, there's an emergency, like, I'm gonna stop what I'm doing, right? Adults can't even do that sometimes. I generalize, obviously, there's other things with that, but it's just the level of, like, sacrifice, the level of understanding, the level the abil I'm pretty sure your ability as a 15-year-old to talk to an adult is very different than your other
I get
friends who are
told that so
15
much.
talking to adults.
No,
Yeah.
like, I can talk to an adult more than I can, like, some teenagers because they get it.
100%. That was me. Oh no, I was in this your same spot, and I was like, "I could talk to an adult for an hour, like, who cares?" And I talked to another 15-year-old, I'm like, can I leave now?" Like, I
That's so
yeah,
real. I think
I feel it. Yeah.
and, like, even adults will compliment me on, like, my maturity or, like, I've heard, like, "Oh my gosh, you're so strong for dealing with this, like, I can never do that." Or, like, "I love how you're doing," and I'm just like, you know, as much as I wanna say, like, I think as much as I wanna say thank you to that, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm so strong because I have to be. Because, like, if I wasn't, our entire family would, like, fall apart little by little by little by little. And that's something that I've realized is, like, there will be people who will say that, and I'm just gonna have to say, "Oh, yeah, thank you." But on the inside, it's like, "Really?"
Go jump off a bridge. Yeah. No, yeah, I feel it. Like, it's yeah, it took me. Yeah, they over time, you just kinda learn to say, "Thanks," and then you just bye. I'm like, "We're not friends," and you just kinda, like, move on, which you're in the process of that, but yeah, I definitely I feel all your pain in that area. But before we end, are there any words of encouragement that you would like to give our fellow siblings listening?
Let me pull up my encouragement. I have it. I wrote it
Excellent.
down, um, if I can find it. But basically, I think my biggest encouragement is to never lose your joy and your energy and, like, your sense of happiness because when you lose your joy, like, everything kind of falls apart, and, like, I feel like joy is so important in life, but also, just, like, know that, like, it's okay to not be joyful and, like, not this super happy person all the time because sometimes you have to, like, let your guard down and be a I guess you could say an emotional wreck sometimes. And ultimately, like, I've learned with my sibling, like, by letting your guard down and, like, by doing that, you're able to not only experience things like support, but also just feel your emotions a lot better, and, it's really important to be able to do that as a sibling to a special needs child, because ultimately, like, if you don't, you're just gonna turn into it's gonna be a cycle, and it'll creep up on you, and that is, like, it sucks coming from someone who has dealt with that.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your encouragement, and thank you for being on the podcast.
Absolutely, it was such a good conversation, I love it.
Thanks for listening to the Special Needs Sibling Podcast. I hope you had a good time listening and feel encouraged in your own journey as a sibling to someone with special needs. If you liked this episode, please share it with your friends. And if you want to hear more stories, please subscribe to the show. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, the show can't happen without you. All special needs siblings have their own unique stories, challenges, family dynamics, and lots of life to talk about and explore. This podcast is here to let you know that you're not alone and that you matter. If you would like to be on the show or just chat off the record, please contact me. My info is in the show notes. Until next time, this is the Special Needs Sibling Podcast.